I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Mrs. Mayor, if you do the roll call, please.
Rebecca Reeder.
She is excused.
Anita Shakosinski.
Here.
Gary Dunlap.
Here.
Tom Cruise.
Here.
Barb Wettstein.
Here.
Sydney Dvorak.
Here.
Cheryl Hancock.
Here.
And Kate Mayer, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So the 7 school board members present, I would declare a quorum. Approval of the agenda. I would note that the agenda has been distributed, posted, and sent to the local media. With this in mind, are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda as published. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, public participation. I have one card for public participation. Francis Brown would like to speak on the resolution revenue limit.
Cheryl.
Yep. Oh, no, we have it on the card.
I have nothing against that, I have nothing against the 23, but as I understand it, there will not be a 5-year limit on that. I don't think you should have any resolution that don't have a limit. You people are serving the people, I think you serve them right. I'm sure a lot of them will vote for it, not even thinking about a limit, but I don't know how you can have any resolution without a limit of 5 years. And I think you should reconsider, because I didn't see anything in the writing that there was going to be a limit on that. And like I said, I'm not condemning the amount or the reason, but you've got one already that's got without a limit on it that'll go for hundreds of years. And I don't think that's the way to do business. And if you're serving the people right, you'll put a limit on that. I also don't have much enthusiasm over trap shooting. I don't know what else you could think of to get it going, but I know it'll happen because everybody's doing it, so that's the way that goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And that is all that we had for public participation this evening. Reports and discussion, moving in to that process for establishing new activities. Mr. Englert.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Mark Englert, the Activities Director for Holman School District, and I'm here to talk about and present the idea of a process for approving outside district organizations, activities, and club status in the district. And Mr. Brown gave me a nice lead in there. So. What are we trying to accomplish? Well, we'd like a systematic process for considering when an outside organization approaches the district and wants to partnership with us in one way or another. We've had a number of organizations over the past 5 or 6 years that have done that and wanted to establish some type of partnership. Here's a list of the ones that have approached us. Normally when we form a club in the district, a club is formed by a group of Holman students only that are interested in a certain activity or organization on their own. They approach me and I look at their request and I ask them to find an advisor who normally is a teacher. And that group exists because those students work hard in the school to try to create that interest in that organization and make it run. When an outside organization, that's either a state organization or a national organization, approaches the school district, it's a little bit different in terms of establishing a club or a partnership with our district. And that's why I felt that there need to be a more formal approach to how to deal with those organizations. So, of course, first step is always to gather information. I know you've got the document, so I won't go into detail here, but it's more about, let us know what you'd like, what your needs are, what type of students are you going to target as part of your group, and what your purpose is. So collecting information to find out if this is going to be a good fit for our district. Then considering that request in details, we do have a process in place called the 10-step process, and I've listed all the different things we do already look at when we try to create a new sport or new organization within our district. And we go through this 10-step process trying to make sure this is going to work well for our students and the district itself. But in addition to that, there are other things I think we have to consider when an organization approaches us, because this really isn't a Holman-created group at all. It's a group that's really already in existence and is trying to be brought into the district. And so what we do is we first apply it to our already established process for creating clubs in the district. And there's a 3-year trial period. So what we would call the activity is an initial activity. And it would take 3 years before we would really consider this group a club in the district. So they have to show us that they have sustainability and that their purpose really does align with the district and that they're able to provide a unique opportunity that's positive for our students. We also are going to have a memorandum of understanding that goes along with this group. And that's because when an organization already exists, they already have rules in place. And that might be having certifications that are required for the advisor. It might be certifications that are required for the students. And also talking about what the responsibilities for expenses are in that memorandum as well. So we want to have this a little bit more detailed information. We want parents to sign off on that memorandum on a yearly basis, because at this point we're thinking these groups are not going to be an expense to the district. They're coming in established organizations, and that these are going to be things that are unique opportunities for our students, but shouldn't be a financial burden to the district. We would want to make sure that we have enough interest that we can field a team or an organization just with Holman students. I don't think we want to get into creating co-ops with other districts in order to provide this opportunity. Certainly things, making sure everyone involved understands that district policies must be followed, that volunteer forms would have to be filed for all the volunteers, and that they would still have to complete an online registration so we can track everything. And then, of course, approval from the administration. Once they've created a group, and this goes a little bit beyond because really we're really only looking at the first 3 steps, but I thought I'd just mention the next step in the process. Because right now they're just an initial activity. We allowed them to be part of the district, but they're going through that 3-year trial period now. And during that 3-year trial period, they would have to show sustainability. They would have to keep attendance of the students involved in their activity and show that they have interest in that organization over time. They would have to keep an electronic inventory of what materials and resources they have. And then, of course, it's sometimes difficult to work with volunteers that are not really part of the district per se. And so making sure they understand that the expectation is there that they have to attend all practices and meetings as well. And then finally, at the conclusion of the 3-year trial period, we would take a look at the 10-step process once again, make sure that their purpose is still in line with the district, and make sure that over that 3-year time period they really did represent the district in a positive manner. So, just making sure they're the right fit after that 3-year trial period is done. And in the end, then we would take a look at them and make a decision to approve or deny them an official club status then. About questions, does anyone have a question about the process?
Any questions?
If it gets them off their iPhone, I'm ready for it.
Any other questions or comments? Barb?
So I appreciate this. I was one of the parents who talked with you some time ago with a question about a club that exists, and you were able to share a lot of information that I didn't think of as a parent in terms of logistics and all those kind of things. So that was really helpful. So I think having a process will be great. My question is, so I think you have a couple of sports that are co-ops currently. Does this affect them at all? And what if one on that list or something wants to come in as a co-op? Is there a separate process for that, or just to clarify? That's
a very good question. So there's a little bit of difference between a WIA sport and a club or an organization. A WIA sport would actually require an issue paper for that particular sport, and we would look for approval, and those would probably have expense associated with them to the district. Where the organizations or clubs, potential clubs that we're considering here, really we're looking at a process to deal with these groups, and those would not necessarily need to come to the board because there wouldn't be an expense associated with them creating that organization and that partnership.
And so this wouldn't affect any of the existing co-op sports, as you're saying?
Yes, this is those sports are outside or different from this process.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Other questions? So I just want a couple clarifications, some things we've talked about in the past, but just for clarification. The volunteers would be expected to pass our volunteer standards.
Yes.
As students would also be expected to adhere to our code of conduct.
Yes.
And then the other thing is related to cost, because some of these organizations had dues and things like that, and I think when we had met in one of the smaller committees, we talked about that, and my understanding is that we would ask them, because we don't have fees now for other sports or whatever, but to consider helping students who might have an interest but might not be able to afford those fees, dues or whatever national dues. And
I would expect the organization to be responsible for that. Yes.
And to assist with that.
Yes.
Okay, good. Good. And I know that while trap shooting is one, there are also, you had put up a list of other things that students were interested in, and I think this example, there was a survey done where students, and it was a high number of response. I think, was it 60-some students expressed an interest?
Yep, I have those statistics with me.
Yeah.
I'll need my glasses in order to be able to read them for you. Let's see, some information to know about. I think this process kind of was generated from the request of trap shooting. Statewide, there are 2,000 students involved in trap shooting, with 78 different school districts that have trap shooting. Locally, Arcadia, Black River Falls, GET, Melrose, La Crosse, Sparta, Toma, and West Salem all have clubs. And as a matter of fact, there are some Holman students that are co-oping in those clubs, so they have to leave and go elsewhere to participate right now. In July, we did do a survey. Out of 303 respondents, 62 indicated they would definitely participate in the club, which is about 20.5. Excuse me. And in addition, 26 respondents.
Poor guy.
Whoa.
Give him some water, someone.
I can use that. Drink of water.
Give him water.
In addition, 26 respondents indicated that they are interested but would like more information.
Great. So yeah, I think it's our interest as a district to respond to interests of the students, and as diverse as they may be. So I think that also helped to facilitate moving, especially this request forward. So this will appear on the consent agenda at the next meeting. So if you have any questions on it, ask now or direct them to Dr. Mueller. So thank you, Mark. Thank you. Okay, then the student activity account, Julie Holman. This also will be on the next meeting's agenda.
Sorry, we had a frozen mouse. Didn't want to move for us, so. Good evening. Each year at this time in August, the board reviews and approves the student activity accounts for the next school year. This year, we're presenting the same 6 student activity accounts for the 18-19 year, and those include the art club, student council, senior video, the Students Against Destructive Decisions, Holman FFA, and Holman FFA Greenhouse. As a reminder, student activities are operated out of Fund 60. They're by the students and for the students. The advisors and student advisors are listed. The one missing, the senior video, I did receive from Karen, and the student advisor for that group is Sammy Chapman. Otherwise, those are complete to begin the school year and provided for you in your Google Drive were the individual purpose forms for each of these 6 activities. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions? Okay, I guess not.
Okay, these will be on the next board meeting for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the next item is agreements for Project Live and Project Search. And Jill Mason. This will also be on the 27th.
Right, so once again, we have our agreements for Project Live and Project Search. Again, Project Live is one of our 3 transition programs for 18 to 21-year-olds. And we now have students from other districts requesting to attend our program options. And so what we've done is decided to use a 6603 agreement. And currently we have, for this coming year, we'll have agreements with GET and La Crosse school districts. GET has a student going to Project Search and one going to Project Live. And then the La Crosse school district has students going to Project Search. And what we did this year that's a little different than last year is we decided to use the general tuition rate for how we will have the other districts pay us. Last year we used salaries and it just got cumbersome where other districts who do Project Search are using the tuition amount. So it's just cleaner and it's one number and everyone can predict it. So that's it. And then Project Search is the one, the transition program where we partner with Gunderson. And so they have an internship for the year. Do you want to see any of the agreements?
Any other questions? Any questions?
I can show you the routine.
Yes, I think you just have to bring it to us and if there's any questions, but it will be on the next consent agenda. Okay, then Dr. Mueller. Referendum update. This is the 2017 referendum update.
And as you know, this is from our past referendum, so there's a few people involved with projects on that, so they're going to join us to give some updates as the events are happening as we sit here on the projects, so they can give you the most updated. So as a reminder, everything we do and a lot of the reasons for our referendums is to meet our vision of educating every student to achieve global success. Our referendum question that was passed in the April of last April was question 1, had 3 parts to it, and it's for over 2-year periods. So we already had our 2017-18 year, and we're coming upon our 2018-19 year, and then the referendum dollars and projects will all be completed and finished. And just as a reminder, it had 4 parts to that first referendum question. 1 was the digitally controlled door access and locking systems, which Mr. Daly will be updating you on. Another one was our security cameras and surveillance systems for our schools, and Mr. Krieger will update us on that tonight. Then also we have our 2-stage entries, our secure entries that are going into our schools, and myself, I'll be updating you on that. And then we did have our public street development to relieve the Briggs and McHugh intersection, and that's kind of one of those projects that's waiting and sitting there for when the time is coming. So I will turn it over to John to update a little bit on the where we're at.
Okay. So we bid this project out as a complete project last year and started it last year, which included 231 door contacts and 44 card readers is where we're at. That's 231 outside doors. Each will have a door contact between the high school, the middle school, and 3 elementary schools. Prairie View already had them. And then 44 card readers where staff will have access to the building. We started at the middle school and the high school last fall and completed those projects around the first of the year. And then this summer we also did the TMT, Oak Grove, and the district office before school let out. In the summer, we've been working on the completed Evergreen. I think they're just about done with Sand Lake, and then they will finish with Viking Elementary and have those ready for the time school starts. So what will happen with the door contacts is during the day when we secure the building after the kids are there, if there's a door that's left open or blocked open for a certain amount of time, we'll get an alarm to the front desk, and we'll be able to investigate and see why that door is closed. Staff will be expected to keep the door closed, outside door closed and secure, and this will ensure that we actually have that within our buildings.
I just want to report quickly on the fiscal end. As you can see, here's a very detailed report of fiscally. In the first column there where it says budget referendum, that's what was actually budgeted in the referendum at the time of the referendum for each of the projects by school. And then the actual bids that came in are in the next column, which actually Mr. Daly was under budget by $11,000, which was very good. Good job, Mr. Daly. And so that helps us with other projects as we move on. Okay. All right.
I'll quickly update on the surveillance camera system. This is wrapping up at our elementary schools this year. This project, as encompassed in the entire referendum, was bid out in 2 phases, and phase 1 happened last summer, and phase 2 is what's now underway. We are expecting these cameras put in as part of phase 2 throughout our elementary schools and Academy on the Prairie to be up and online and recording early in fall. So contractors are presently finishing up install work, and then there's a lot behind the scenes that happens to bring these cameras into our video management system and get them recording and get all the storage set up where that video gets archived. So that's really where we are at right now in this project, and you can see on the slide the numbers for each school that will have totaling 339 cameras across the district.
And once again, in the first column is the budgeted referendum dollars by project. And then the second column was our actual bids. And Mr. Krieger, through the bidding process, came in $165,000 under budget in this area. So did very competitive bidding and really learned how to break down projects certain ways to get the best bid prices. So. The next projects were our 2-stage entries. This I took last week, and actually it's already different today again. This is our high school, and each day it's changing. But off to the right you can see we're going to have, and you can, the main entrance, the conference room that, the conference room there on the outside, that's new construction area that was added, because we actually needed to use where the current conference room is as a vestibule, so that when people come into the building, they'll be in there before they enter in through the school, and they will no longer have to go all the way through the office and other areas, or right into the school area. They will have to check in now, and there will be someone there to check in and actually see them before they enter the building. And the middle school also is they just put the windows in this weekend. As you're driving by, you could see them putting the new windows on the front of the school. And the purpose of those windows is so that you actually have a view right outside where they're sitting through the office also, besides having someone checking them in. You can see there'll be a whole vestibule area also that they come in through and go into the office, and then they can come out and around into the school. So once again, and these projects they're slated to be finished actually coming up towards the end of this week, if not early next week. So
Is the glass special glass, or is it just regular?
actually, through our, well, I don't know about the glass, but what I can say is through our safety grant, we are getting film put on it, the shatter-resistant film through 3M. So actually, that really slows down any type of projectile that would come through. Is there anything else you want to add about the glass?
No,
No?
our safety,
Okay.
the safety grant is covering all of that, and so that will be added to this after the project.
Yes, Cindy?
So when people get off the bus, do they have to come through the two-stage entry as also, or no?
No, the before school hours,
Yeah.
the bus doors are open and the front doors are open for people to enter. But once the start of school happens, then all the doors are locked and everyone must enter through that entryway. Yep, good question. Here's our budget again. The first column is the budget that was slated within the referendum. Then when you do a project, you have a conceptual design, and that's the next column. So conceptually, you could see those numbers. So for example, the high school, we budgeted at the time in the referendum 189.9. Once we did the conceptual design, it came in at 296.4, but then really worked hard and worked through plans for a while and got the actual design to 182. So in the end, it was actually below what was budgeted. And then with the middle school, 600 was budgeted, 900 came through initially on the design. Oh, yeah, and then we worked really hard and worked through designs again, and it got it down below the referendum budgeted amount. So overall, in the whole scheme of things, we were about 100,000 below in that project also. So where we're at now is we're in the process with our two-stage entries for our elementaries. Now, Prairie View already has a two-stage entry, so this is our other three, Evergreen, Sand Lake, and Viking. So right now, we're in the process of the design development in that. And over time, in the next few months, we'll get into the specific actual specifications of that design. And our plan is to bring a presentation to you in December and go to bid in January. We're actually moving our timeline up a little because what we found is the sooner we go to bid, the better of a deal we're getting, and that's how we've been able to save a lot of dollars. With board approval in February. And then if you notice here at the end, looking at starting Evergreen and Sand Lake projects in June, but not Viking. We have summer school yet that we need to fulfill, and we are not able to fit all of our summer school students into Prairie View alone. We do need 2 buildings now just because of the size of our elementary summer school. So then what we would do is the project for Viking would start the following summer with completion then. The criteria that we're using for our design development is to make sure we have a safe 2-stage entry from the recommendations from our WSCA professionals, that we don't lose instructional space, that we don't have separation of office staff to the main effective services. In other words, they're in proximity. We want to stay as fiscally responsible as we can while meeting needs. The square footage of the office space shouldn't decrease. We shouldn't cause additional staffing, and we shouldn't isolate a staff member. And what I mean by isolate is that they're off by themselves in a different area from the rest, like across a hallway or in a place alone. With that criteria, in this process of our elementary development, we've recognized that the scope of our project for the 2-stage entries needed to be expanded. And that needed to happen to accomplish the most comprehensive security safe levels while being able to keep the functionality at the elementary schools. And what we mean by functionality is we want to have a welcoming environment for our families and staff as they're coming in, but also we want to keep our operational ongoing costs as low as possible. And what I mean by that is if we were to have a place where we have one staff member isolated, we'd actually need to hire a staff person to just let people in and out, and we didn't want to go with that type of design and have to hire someone and then have to have that ongoing operational cost, because our criteria was not in that fashion. So with our criteria, this is where we're currently at. Our budgeted referendum amounts, as you can see, for Evergreen was 187.9. Right now, conceptually, we're at 700,000. And as you'll notice, Sand Lake, we're quite a bit above, and Viking, we're quite a bit above. Now, we're still in our design phase, and as you notice with our middle school and high school, we're able to get it down quite a bit. I don't know if that's going to be possible with these, but what we want to do is we want to really be thinking and planning, all right, when I look at the dollar amounts, this is going above and beyond the referendum budgeted dollar amounts. So what would we do, or how would we be able to still make this happen and fulfill our commitment to the community? Just going back, one might ask, why is Viking so much more than Sand Lake or Evergreen? Okay, so reason being, this is Viking's design right now, and you can see in the middle there is the office area. So everything is across the entry and hallway. And so to fulfill our criteria to meet the standards of the design, what we need to do is actually, there's a lot more new construction. There would have to be a build out of new construction to relocate that office. And then right there where we would relocate that office, we have to move the instructional space over across the hallway. So that's the reason for the higher cost at Viking. Whereas if I show you the next slide here, in Sand Lake, there's currently a music room off to the right there, and the office is across the hallway also. But what we can do in this situation is we can just flip-flop them and do renovations. So it's much different when you have to build out and build new versus just flip-flopping an area to make the criteria work properly. So here's a summary though. Like I mentioned earlier, we came under budget on quite a few projects, but we're finding with the two-stage entries at the elementary, right now they're looking like we're going to need more. So in the end, when you put it all together, we're at a deficit of about 1.4 million. So what's our plan? Well, we've learned in the process that through the design that what we started with and what we thought, it's going to have to look a little different as to why we're here. The original design would have not provided the safest or most welcoming environment that we originally had. And also, we want to make sure that, like I talked about before, that we don't have an ongoing cost. We want a one-time cost and have it done and meet our criteria and have it done right. So the plan we have, here's a little diagram, is in this upcoming year, 18-19, so coming up in the 18-19 year, we have referendum dollars yet. We would take and pay for 25% of our project for Evergreen and Sand Lake in our 18-19 budget year, which is about $341,000. And actually what I should do is, if you look at the chart at the bottom there, 2.8 million is what we have for our whole referendum, question 1. And then we deduct all of our expenses up to this point. We're left with a balance of $1 million. So then we subtract the 341, which is starting our Evergreen and Sand Lake work at the end of in this budget year, and then continuing to complete the rest of the Sand Lake Evergreen projects. We would complete or deplete the rest of our referendum dollars, which is $663. So then we would have a balance of $360, but then we'd want to start our Viking project, which would have a balance of about $279. So what we're looking at is in our 19-20 budget year, through new dollars and our current operational budget, we would have to fulfill that. Like, and that would go to the top of our on and underfunded needs list to make sure that this could happen. And then we'd also have to do that then in the following 2021 school year. I almost feel like I should pause if there's questions on that before I move into the next.
Are there questions, Kate?
Yeah.
Could you refresh my memory? I know with the safety grant that we're getting, can any of that money be used toward this? And a follow-up question to that, is that safety grant going to be a possibility in the future years, or is this kind of a one-time thing, the state?
So the safety grant, there's two parts, because we definitely looked into that right away. I was like, oh, excellent, money for safety. But it's very precise in what you can use it for. And part of it is if you've started a project, they don't want to supplement that project. And the other part is one of the items wasn't, the amount of dollars that you get was about $20,000 per building. So it was pretty minimal. And they really want it focused more around training and cameras and entry door locks. So we got the dollars we could, and we're using it for our film, which will be great, and a lot of training. So no, it won't be able to be used towards that, but that was a great idea.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And is it a one-time grant?
So they just came out with a second safety grant, but it's focused around, once again, mental health training. So it's not for structural. Most of the grant monies are more around smaller items. Okay, an update on question 2. This is just for this past school year, so it was $900,000. You'll see a lot of the work is already happening out there. It's for additional parking at the high school here, construction for a vehicle drive out to the parking, and then also physical education athletic fields out back. Just like what I said. That's what it's for. So this was the picture that we showed you prior to the referendum. You can see there's the current parking lot, and you will now see, I'll show you a picture in a minute of the paved drive that goes back to a new parking lot, and it's all lit, and there's sidewalk on both sides, and then there is one athletic field back there, and it's actually fenced in now for our athletic events and for FIAD class, and then another one back behind that is there. The front one has been sod. It's sod, so it's, boy, the people that have been back there are very impressed and like it. And the other one, it was seeded, and it's growing grass, and it's going to keep growing grass.
How far are those from the school?
Let me go back here. Okay.
So if you look at the field here, so this is 100 yards, and so you could estimate from this corner if that's one 100-yard length. So you're probably at about 200 yards to the parking lot, far end of the parking lot. Is that what you're getting at, Tom?
Yeah, you have classes there. I mean, the PE teachers go out there, and it's not a big deal to go out that far. Like, probably not, is it?
They've been going out that far already with the existing practice fields.
Okay, I was just curious.
Good question.
Yeah. So once again, we'll have 136 more parking spaces, and we'll have an area for it so the buses can turn around, and we have nice sidewalks along there and good and very new lighting. So I was driving by the other night, it was really lit up. You could really see everything nicely, very safe. There's some current pictures. You can see the sidewalks on both sides, the lights, and the picture of the parking lot back there. One more shot. And then there's my best aerial view from the bleachers of the new field. They did switch it so that there's dugouts facing, let's see, east, so the sun isn't in the players' eyes at game time before, but it'll be in the fans' eyes now instead, on the other side. This overall project, it was $900, and it once again, you can see at the very end there, it actually came in under budget, about $18,000. So the majority of projects came in very well under budget. Right now, we're working through our elementary 2-stage entry project when we're in the design phase.
Is that behind budget, or is that in the red, the safety budget, or the safety stuff, or is that, we're okay with that, you said, right?
Except, right now, we're working the elementary two-stage entries.
that's
We're
what
in
you
the
said.
red
Said that
right now on
earlier.
that, and we're working, we have a plan, and we're working through our design concept of that right now.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
What about the main parking lot at high school? It's looking kind of rough. I don't know what the
Oh, would
deal
you
is.
like to talk about that, John? That's been a hot
Oh.
topic today. Yeah.
Yeah, check it out next week. It is being sealed and painted this week.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yep.
Good question, Tom, thank you.
In fact, they were out there today doing some patchwork out there.
Yeah, I leveled my RV out there the other day, and it was, I found some nice spots, but it was like, this place could use a little TLC, so.
Yeah, and that's
Thank
out
you.
of our operational budget.
Right.
Yeah, John had that planned within his budget, so.
Other questions?
I just have one. So the student parking fees increased quite a bit this year, so that revenue goes towards something with this, I'm assuming?
As a part of, Wayne, Julie, me, we're all in the same loop on this. If I missed that, let me know. But as a part of our commitment during the referendum, we said the taxpayers would pay a good portion of that, but that the students who use that lot would be expected to make a contribution as well. So we've increased the tag fee for parking this year, and it was 25 last year, and it's going
20,
20 last year, and it's going to be
45.
45. Now, for the students to pay their portion, it'll take about 20 years' worth of students to pay their portion. But it's a contribution, and that adds that $171,000. And during that time, the district will fund that, and then that increased fee amount will be processed through the business office, and we'll keep track when we've reached that threshold.
I do want to mention, they did do analysis to make sure that we weren't overcharging compared to other districts and so forth.
Still a pretty good deal. I think.
Yeah, and I didn't mean that. I thought, I told my son, you're blessed to have a car, so come up with $45 if you want to drive it to school. So, you know,
I like that.
it's
I'll
a good
chime in.
thing. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Then,
Thank you.
7.5 is the initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds not to exceed $23,500,000. Which, Jay, when they built the high school, do you remember what the?
We looked at that. It was in the teens, 13 million, maybe $14 million to build a brand-new high school in 1993, 94.
Yeah, our high school's 25, coming upon 25 years old. Yeah, so anyways, okay.
Am I going?
Yes, you ready? I need some water if I'm going to keep talking.
As Dr. Mueller referenced earlier, our vision as a district drives what we do. And so what you'll see are three resolutions. Resolution 1 is actually the bond issue resolution.
Thank you.
$23.5 million in bond, and what the board would be authorizing with that resolution would be the sale of bonds in that amount and the authority to tax to pay back that bond amount. And you can see there the items, and this is just how the question, very close to how the question would appear on the ballot, identifying the construction, furnishing, equipping, additions of a fine arts center, gymnasium and related spaces, career technology education, music and other areas, remodeling, renovating, and equipping of the commons, kitchen, instructional, and other spaces, and site improvements. This is the wording. That looks like an awful lot to appear on a ballot, and honestly it is, but when you have a ballot, there's certain legal requirements you have to meet, and this has been reviewed by bond counsel, and this is the wording we'd be presenting. You'd be presenting. Any questions on that first resolution?
Any questions?
Okay. Question, Mr. Brown still here?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. This is Resolution 2. This is $460,000 to cover the ongoing operational cost of the new square footage being built. And so just like putting an addition on a home, you have to heat it, you have to clean it, you have to maintain it over time, you have to have property insurance on that. So all those ongoing operational costs are covered in that $460,000. So it's not just the current, but when that roof needs to be replaced on that facility in 20 years, when the Fine Arts Center seating needs to be repaired or replaced, or curtains need to be replaced, those types of ongoing facility, the parts of the building would be covered as well as the immediate operational cost. Now, as Mr. Brown pointed out, this is a recurring referendum question. By that, there is no designated end date to the authority of the board to tax for this amount. In fact, this is an exception to the revenue limit. Now, I would point out that we don't always do this. In fact, after Mr. Brown's comments, I went and looked, and we've had 4 non-recurring referenda, and we have had 5 recurring. And so I'd submit that the board very carefully considers whether recurring or non-recurring is the correct form of the question. And in this case, because the cost will be ongoing, the recurring nature is the best. Now, I would say that the board does represent the community, the idea that this will never end. The board represents the community. It is the board's duty and the duty of the administration that serves the board to annually recommend and approve or disapprove this levy amount. It doesn't have to be levied. It's a choice made annually during the budget development process.
How many have been discontinued?
None.
That's a concern of mine.
Okay. The board considers these, as I said, annually for approval or not approval. Only the amount needed to deliver the services consistent with the referendum question and consistent with the community's expectations. The idea of it never going away, I would suggest that the board not levy more than acceptable to the public. And if the public thinks that's happening, the public has a chance every year, it's called election date, to remind the board what they should be doing. The board does not have to do this every year. It makes the decision like it does every budgetary decision. So I guess it is annually up for review on April, election day.
And the public trusts your ability to run the money. And I think for the most part, you do a good job. I really do. I've watched you. I know how we cross our T's and dot our I's. But I do think a little more insight. I didn't know there was 5. I was wondering how many were recurring. I didn't know that till 2 minutes ago.
It is an important decision to make every year, and thank you for the compliments, but it is the school board that ultimately makes the decision. We bring information and recommendations.
So in a situation like this where we're adding square footage that needs to be operated, and these are the funds to do it, if that square footage went away, then the need for these dollars would go away. But it's unlikely, unless we abated or left the building, that that would happen. I mean, the need for that ongoing recurring costs, operations costs, is there until that space goes away. If it was coming with an influx of students, but we're really building on to the building to meet the needs of the current students that we have, with some slight increase coming, but it's really, again, those common areas. So the increase in students wouldn't help us offset the need for this square footage. That's not really what's driving this. So that's why it's always been a struggle. The building, when you build a building, you have to operate it. For how long do you operate it? Well, hopefully we're going to get more than 5 years out of the building, and so you have to have the funds to operate it as long as the building exists. But so yeah, I think that's kind of the approach we've taken.
I would agree. That's why you have 5 of one type and 4 of the other type, is because you're weighing those decisions. I'd also say, to the board's credit, that whenever we do this, we're assessing what the tax implication would be. And so there's no denying it will be additional money. But again, these this cost and this tax levy has been incorporated into the whole, and when we say there'll be no net tax increase, it includes these dollars. So we have a long-range financial plan that allows us to achieve those things. It would be a different, perhaps, decision for the board to make if this was going to increase the tax rate to all the home and property owners in the community.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So Jay, have we ever continued to levy for a cost that went away?
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this particular resolution? It's to ask the public for authority to exceed the revenue limits by $460,000 for those specific costs, again, with no net tax increase. I should have said that with the first one, too. That is part of the financial plan. We have the $23.5 million would be introduced without a net tax rate increase. Help me if I'm forgetting something else. Okay, and then the third resolution, and previously we'd only talked about two, but in visiting with bond counsel, they also advanced this resolution, a resolution actually to hold the election, a third type. The first two are the actual resolution questions themselves, and this says we're going to actually have a referendum election. We're going to, in section 2, talk about how we're going to notify the electorate. We're going to talk about the polling places, the referendum election officials, what the ballot form will say, how you'll conduct canvassing afterwards. So they're now recommending to us a very specific resolution on those issues be a part of this as well. So 1 and 2 are what the questions are, and the third is to say, yes, we agree under these conditions to put it on the ballot. And this is actually the form of the question that bond counsel has provided us. So it's not in the form of a resolution, but it is in the form of a question, which is how you present a yes/no question is what you present on the ballot. And the first question would be the $23.5 million for the improvements of the high school as outlined previously. And the second question that would appear on the ballot would be the $460,000 of operations cost.
And all three of these are on this evening's consent agenda. Correct. So any questions? Okay, seeing no questions, then we will move on to the consent agenda. And unless there are any items you'd like to have considered separately, we have 8 items this night, tonight. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I would so approve.
I'd like to pull 6 and 7 out, 8, 6, and 8, 7.
Okay. So then a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented with the exception of items 8.6 and 8.7. Is there a motion? Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Then items 8.6 and 8.7, would you want them to be considered together or?
Well, they're the referendum questions, right?
Yes.
That's what they are.
Yep.
Yeah, we can consider them together.
So then before we have discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve items 8.6 and 8.7.
I'll make the motion.
Anita, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, then discussion. And so Tom, since you asked for them to be pulled out, if you'd like to have open the discussion.
Yes, I would. I'd like to thank Chris for the book on maximizing performance. I'm really enjoying it. I've never had a leadership book in education before. I've read a lot of leadership books, but I think it's a really good book. I'm really enjoying it. I had some concerns the entire time with these referendum questions. The speed of the referendum has been exceptional. It's 36 days ago, we've been asked to approve almost $24 million. I also think, I've just got my notes here. I also think Holman does a very good job with money, and I made that comment earlier. The no new taxes, and I know I've worked with Jay before with the health benefits. The referendum addressing the safety concern is one thing. Otherwise, in my opinion, a referendum should only be considered after exhausting all other avenues involving staff, buildings, and procedures. I also know that we operate under I would consider a dying funding model. It's not really very student-centric, and it's 25 years old. But on January 9th last year, I raised concerns about the swiftness of the safety referendum, which was presented on December 12th, 2016. On January 9th, I commented I did not know if Holman had done all we could do to avoid going to referendum. Today, 19 months later, I still don't have a real firm answer to that question. I also blame myself partly for that, and I need to get involved in more of the committees. As far as the Finance Committee meeting, I didn't see anything discussing $24 million as far as with the district. Random comments, I don't believe the AC is an oversight for 2 decades in part of the high school. I've had a lot of people ask me about that, but I think we could probably get around it with procedures, maybe have the wrestling in the morning, I don't know. But the different proposals are many. I do not believe we have vetted the teachers for input in some area of these areas. I think Troy Larson had a very insightful email, and I know that we've answered that question, but I just think there's probably more questions that we could get more information, and I think we could, I just don't like the speed of these things. I still don't. I don't have answers to, I'm a big proponent of later start times. Internet school. I've had many people ask me about that in the last couple of weeks. I know a lot of people in this community, they ask me, because I ask them about these things. What do you think about this referendum? Is it a good idea? Holman's a great district. I'm proud to be a member, to be on the board. But as a leader, it's my job to make the leadership here unsettled. Professionally, of course, but per the book, it's a good idea. It's okay to be unsettled a little bit, a little uncomfortable on a professional basis. That makes us stronger as leaders. I'm also not a big believer in a ongoing referendum that recurring over time. I think Francis, I agree with Francis 100%. I also know, I'm not surprised with Anita's comment, very accurate. We don't play with money around here. We're very responsible. Are we doing all we can? I don't see the intellectual curiosity I want to see. I don't see it with the changing funding models. I saw a survey in June about how schools have changed. Districts across this state are shrinking. Every district almost, they say. I don't think Holman is, because we do a good job. I think we can bring in more students. I think we can bring in more pay and more money. I think we could, in my opinion, these questions should be postponed, not eliminated. I can see the need, but I would like to see them postponed till these questions are answered. I thank you for listening to me, and I have the ultimate respect for this board and everybody in this room. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Kate?
With all due respect to your comments, the implications that we are doing this in a hurry offends me. And I want to state that because I want our citizens to know it has not been a speedy, quick thing. We look every single year, we go back decades considering what should be done. To imply that this is speedy, I just want to counter that to anyone who's listening tonight. This district does a wonderful job planning way ahead of its time. To imply that teachers have not had input just because we've gotten some input as this proceeding goes along also is offensive to me. I believe that our staff, our administration has bent over backwards to get input. And the plan actually that we're bringing forward is the result of that input. The word not professional is offensive to me. This district is highly professional. It is known around the state for that. Intellectual curiosity lacking? I think not. We have so many new things that are state of the art. Traveling to conferences, I see that that's true. Many districts are shrinking, was stated, but we are not. Exactly, we are not. We are a growing district with needs. If this were my household, or any of our households, for me not to look ahead for what is needed in a timely fashion would not be doing my job as a family member. and I look at this district and my role in it, in a sense, as a family, I am very proud of everything that we are doing for this. And I guess basically that's all I'm going to say. I wanted to counter those things just to let the public know there's another opinion up here on the board.
Anybody else?
I'd like to add a little more support to what Kate said. And one thing is the unfunded needs. Everyone knows that for the last umpteen years, we've had an unfunded needs list, and we've addressed how to take care of those unfunded needs. And with the current budget and the current monies we had available in order to meet those needs, and we haven't been able to do it. And we've done all kinds of researches, and we've done everything we could to meet those unfunded needs, but we haven't been able to do it. And it hasn't been done quickly. It's been over the last 5 years or so. And as I said at the last board meeting, we talked about the Building and Grounds Committee a few times have brought some of these projects forward, trying to get them done. And an example I always use is the air conditioning for the gymnasium. That was just brought up again last year, trying to get additional funding to get that done, and we weren't successful. So we've looked at everything we could piecemeal to do some of these projects, and we haven't been able to get them done. I think it's time to put them forward in front of the community and say, what better place to do that than to put it forward in the community and say, do you want this or do you not want it? What else better thing could you do than do that? Put it out there, say this is what we're planning on doing. We think it's a good plan. It's going to be great for your students. Do you want to do it or not? I don't see anything wrong with that, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Anyone else? Anita?
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I would agree with everything Kate and Gary said, and I just want to add that if someone thinks that we have not, that this is sprung at the last minute out of the last 36 days, people may not have been paying attention to what we've been talking about for the last few years, because this has been on the burner forever.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one thing. I just cannot give enough credit to not only our administrative team, but our staff. We've had a long on and underfunded needs list since I've been here in these last 4 years, and I am so proud to say how creative everyone has been in solving. And I'll bring a report again to the amount of needs that we've been able to meet through creative ways that they've come up with repurposing different resources within our district. One of the things that came about is our hallways. That building was built in, 1994. It's 25 years old. Those original hallways right now are so small, our kids look like cattle going through them. We came up with a way to widen that hallway with no cost. We used our operational, what we have, to get that hallway to a size so our students can go through there. And it's great when the kids are there now over at that high school, like, wow, look at that hallway. They're so proud of a hallway, and that's not the only thing, even in the dining area, we're like, okay, we just need to come up with different furniture arrangement. We can get this figured out. And it's a short term, and yes, we're gonna need more, but we're always working together so hard to meet these needs as best as we can. But what happens is we've grown over time. It's been a long time. We've grown, and we have these large groups of kids that are coming up through our high school now, and these support areas, we just cannot meet the needs like we need to for them. And we're limited with our funds. We don't have the funds to do the building, the structural part of it. So that's why we're asking and going to ask, we want to ask that this proposal would go through.
Any other comments? Barb, did you have anything to add? So about a year ago, I asked Chris if she would put an update from the high school committee that she had formed in the fall of 2016. I asked her if she'd put it on the agenda, and she's like, what? We've only done a few months and we're not ready to report. And I said, we need to have an update. And it really, at the end of that presentation, I said, I remember saying, so you mean we may have a referendum to do some improvements in about a year? So it's been over a year, Tom, that we've been talking about this. Has it been this specific outcome? No, it takes time to develop and to come to terms and be creative. But we have certainly been, that Buildings and Grounds Committee has certainly been working on this initiative, and if you look at their minutes, that's why those minutes are included in your folders, so that you can take time and look at them and read them, and you would have seen that this has been something that has been coming through and been discussed for that amount of time. So that's the very reason I asked for it to be on the agenda, because historically, one of the first objections we get from people is we're pushing this through too fast. When reality is, no, we have not been pushing it through fast. Decisions sometimes come to a head. You get the planning stage, and then you have a solution. And in fact, we as a board changed the solution that came to us from the Buildings and Grounds Committee. So it was because of us that actually changed a little bit, not because of anything that their actions. So again, I think the idea that it's been pushed through quickly is really a false idea. And so I hope that people would support it as well. I plan to vote for it. So,
Can I add one thing?
Barb.
And I think too in just all the questions I've had through this process, because I am the newest member here. So, and just getting those answered, it's my understanding too that I appreciate that staff are asking for, to meet, you know, the main, or I hate to say all, because I'm sure there's things that aren't being met, but the vast majority of the underfunded needs that have been recurring for a number of years, such that would be the goal that we don't have to visit this again next year. You know what I mean? To me, it looks like a really healthy package that meets the needs of our kids, and with the enrollment projections meets the needs down the road too. So I think I appreciate all the thought and detail and information that people have provided through the process.
And referendum is a tool that we have.
Sure.
It's one of the tools that we have in order to be able to do these things. And we've been following the financial plan, which says, again, $23 million without, a tax increase. This is the time, as part of the long-range plan, this is the time to do these things because of that plan and how that's worked out, so.
Sorry, I upset everybody. Oh, well.
No.
That's how it goes.
It is. So I would say there's a motion on the floor to approve 8.6 and 8.7. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Okay, then we will move on to board reports and discussion, or board member comments. I'll call on you, and you can share any comments that you might have. And Anita, I'll start with you.
I have no committee reports to make. I would just like to thank everybody for all the work they've done getting this referendum information together and presented, and you're appreciated. Keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dunlap?
I have no reports to report either. I just feel sorry for the football players in this 90-degree heat.
Yeah.
And the coaches, I'm sorry, and the coaches.
Mr. Cruz?
Yeah, nothing really. I'm just curious what the difference between draft and, I don't know what the difference is between draft and not draft.
I don't know.
Board committee.
You got two in your agenda?
Yeah. One says committee draft, one says not draft. I didn't know what the difference was. I don't see much difference.
I may have just left them. Sure.
Okay, that's fine. So that's it.
So, Ms. Westside, nothing? Sydney? Nothing? Kate Mayer?
Thank you. I really enjoyed the presentations, all the presentations, but don't we all really enjoy to see how you worked so hard to get things under budget in the reports that I saw tonight. I saw that over and over again. And I think, Dr. Miller, you said something about, we all worked really hard, and I'm thinking that translates as a meeting, then a change, then another meeting, then a change, and another bid, and on and on. And those four simple words, we worked really hard. We appreciate what we don't know that you've done. Thanks to public that I do see there this evening. Some of you have written, some of you have spoken, but your commitment to coming to these meetings and supporting what we're doing and helping us decide what to do is so appreciated. There's a vast difference between board meetings when the public is here and not, and I know some meetings are probably a little more boring than others, and there's maybe nothing at stake for you, but really appreciate seeing faces in the audience and the back stories that you bring and what you're doing. looking forward to working with many of you and working on the referendum.
Thank you.
One more comment, and that is that everyone here is supporting this referendum to get it where it's at. I'm sure you know that right now is when all the hard work really begins. I've got to get out there and get the message out to everyone.
Thank you. I know through this process, it's been very enriching and positive for me, and I think one of the best days, I always say, is graduation day, of course, but we received some correspondence, and one of our faculty members sent an email to the board and talked about how he could be selfish and maybe really push for his part of the project, but he really felt like it was important as a school, as a team, to work together and not to separate. That's when we were having discussions about the Fine Arts Center being a separate thing from the rest of the project. And that spoke to me not only about the quality staff that we have, but the passion that we have, and the people that our children, the hands our children are in good hands. And I just thank you for all of that positive feedback that we received, and solutions, instead of having that maybe approach where it could have been more divisive. So that to me was just a banner day for the district, showing the quality staff that we have on all levels, whether it's our administration, the folks in the classroom, whether the classroom be on a field or in the gymnasium or in a science lab or whatever. It's just, it just reinforced to me that we really have a quality staff. So I appreciated that, and knowing that your being here does make a difference, and really appreciate you coming out. I saw emails about, or Facebook posts about coming out to the meeting tonight and supporting it, and it really does make a difference to have you here and holding, as a board, holding us accountable, because that's really what it's all about. So I did want to say thank you for all your efforts in doing that. I would just note that the committees are in your packet for this upcoming year. I think most committees will meet starting in September. There are some that are continuing to meet throughout the year. So without any other items to come before the board, we do have a closed session. So Kate, if you would do the motion to go into closed session.
Here we go. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby moves to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. In this case, analysis of individual district positions, including contract terms and compensation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and Kate, if you would do a roll call, please.
Anita Jagosinski?
Yes.
Gary Dunlap?
Yes.
Gary Dunlap.
Tom Cruise?
Yes.
Barb Wedstein?
Yes.
Cheryl Hancock?
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Okay, we will re-adjourn, or whatever, in about 3 minutes.
Mr. Brown.
Whatever.